It's a really big day here on After the Horn, one of Denver's biggest sports legends. Not you, Woody. Joins us next. John Elway's here.
Oh, fellas, our guest today, one of the 2 or 3 greatest quarterbacks that ever played the game, John Elway. And I like the fact that you walked in and when you said hello, you looked at me and said, "Oh, the 3 old stiffs." And I thought, that should be the name of the show.
Yeah, he talked to Doug Moe the other day, and I think Doug Moe would agree with you totally.
Hey, but in John's defense, he said, "Well, I'm the 4th."
Right, absolutely. Getting to that point.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
What have you been doing?
You know, I always have to look back at my schedule to see what I've been doing.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
But
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, life's good. You know, it's I've been playing a lot of golf and, stepping away from the Broncos, so enjoy the golf and, get outside, move around, and still allows me to compete. And so that's mainly what it is. And then just looking after the family and
Sure.
all the finances and that kind of stuff gets complicated every once in a while with everything
Family's
going on
bigger.
in the world, too. So it's like, yeah.
Hey, as you told me
So-
a few months ago, you worked hard to get to that point.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to do, it's cool, right?
It is, and I think it takes a while to get used to that. I think that
It does.
I never thought football would be out of my life or wouldn't be involved somehow. But having to be in the GM for 11 years, and then George came in, I kind of moved up a step and kind of oversaw it, and George kind of took over. So it was a perfect kind of exit because did that for 2 years. You take the responsibility kind of goes away, and so eventually it was a perfect time for me to walk away from the Broncos, and the exit they gave me was great, and the fact that it was a slow kind of gentle exit.
Yeah.
And then, but then and once I kind of went through that, I knew it was time that it was time to go and get away from football and kind of start enjoying things, and so I've been doing a lot of that, and got 10 grandkids now with number 11 on the way.
Number
and,
11 on the way.
Yeah. So. Try to spend as much time as I can.
Do you think
running
you're a
around.
better grandfather than you were father? Because I do. Because
Yeah.
I got more time.
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately, my 2 oldest, 7 of them, my oldest Jesse lives in Sacramento, and Jordan lives down in Austin. So they've got 7 between them. And then Juliana, my youngest, is here with her 3. And then Jack is they're doing February with his first.
That's
And so-
impressive. You even knew everyone's
Yeah,
name
you
and
re-
whereabouts.
Well, I work on it. Believe me, I work on dates. I was talking to Jordan, my second daughter, today. I'm going, okay, I know how old they are. So they are in the 1st, 3rd, and 5th grade. I said, okay, now I got it. But trying to always rehash that so I can remember it.
I don't want to remind you of things that have happened in the past, but you and I sat down at your restaurant in Cherry Creek when you were 50. And the reason why I can remember that is because our birthdays are one day apart. Yours is June 26th, and I think
28th. I'm the
28,
28th,
and mine's 27. And I said to you at 50, what is it you want to do left in your life? And you said, I want to get back into football, which you did. And you said, I would like to travel to the Middle East. The third thing you said is, I want to be a villain in a cowboy movie. I know you have traveled throughout Europe in between playing and coming back as an executive. I know that you have gotten back into football, but have you ever auditioned for being a villain in a movie? Because we had a promo that showed you in a cowboy outfit, and you were nicknamed Duke after John Wayne. Is that
I think
still?
you gave me that name.
Yes, I did.
That's why everyone kept asking me who gave it to you, and I started thinking about it. And I said it was Woody that gave me that.
Do you know why I did that?
No.
You should know.
Yeah, I know. I know because he is bow-legged. John Wayne was bow-legged.
At the
You
walk.
probably don't know that. The walk, and the fact that John Wayne was such a strong figure, and he always won.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, he was the winner. So winner, and the fact that he was a strong man, and he walked bow-legged. That was the reason I was looking for a nickname. And oddly enough, later Peyton Manning is called the sheriff.
Right.
And somebody came up with that, which I think was based on, well, if John was the Duke and John Wayne, then. But I wonder if you are still feeling that you should be in a cowboy movie. Do you have is there something out there?
I've always said that, right, with the idea that I can't really ride a horse. It's like I get on a horse now, right?
There's that.
And I picked out
And so it's
Duke.
like I still look at these guys riding the horses that fast, and I've never ridden one in a full gallop, even though
Well-
I'm usually holding onto the horn with
So 15,
with two hands.
yeah.
And so
15 years
yeah.
later, then what is it? You were talking about what you're doing, playing golf and you're being with your grandkids, but what's left? I mean, what is there? What objective do you have now? What sort of thing that you haven't done in your life would you like to do?
I say this is I looked at it, and I was always trying to climb a new mountain, right? So in football, I was trying to be the best I could be as a quarterback, and then, I got in the Arena League I did the Arena League because I wanted to learn on the business side of football, and it was a startup, so I got to know both sides and learn the business side. So I did that for 6 years, and
Car dealerships.
and I got that, the dealerships way back. I did that in '91, and I did that because I knew eventually my football career was going to end too. I knew I was not going to coach. Because number one, I saw how hard my dad worked, how much time it takes, and plus all the coaches that coached me, I knew how much time they spent, and I didn't want to spend that much time. Number one, and number two is there were a lot of things I couldn't tell you why I did certain things. I mean, for me, it was so reactionary. Once I got into, the technique of the drops, throwing the football, where your shoulders are, the depth of your drops, and I worked hard on those things. But other than that, reading coverages and those type of things. But there was a lot of things I did that I don't know why I did them. I just kind of reacted. And so that's why I wasn't sure I'd make a very good coach. And I think if you look at it, and it's really history said it, really the backup quarterbacks are the best coaches, right?
Yeah,
Because
they study.
they
see.
study and they look at it differently, and the way they look at it more is, at least with Gary, because he ended up being a great coach, but they look at it differently as a backup than they do, in my mind, as a starter. And the fact that, when Gary was looking at game plans, he was more interested in, okay, why are we doing things, where I was like, I wanted to know the why and what coverage we were after, but other than that, I didn't need to know a why.
But those guys also knew what it was like from in the pocket, where it's like one thing when you're sitting up in the press box or on the sideline, it's the pocket's mayhem, and you got to be able to add that into the mix, and those backups could do that.
Yeah, exactly, and because they've been in that position. And it's funny you bring that up because everybody sees open people from the stands, right?
Sure.
We all see it up there. It would be interesting to see how many people get them in a pocket and experience just being in a pocket with those guys rushing and trying to read coverage and having the receivers run.
3 seconds.
I remember
you
you saying once the biggest difference between college and the NFL. In college, everybody's running wide open. In the NFL, that's wide open.
Yeah, the windows are much, much smaller in the NFL, and you think about when you're in college. So playing in the Pac-12, when there was, if you look on the other side of the defense, there's probably, unless you're playing USC at that time, back in those days, that, there may be one other player on that other team that is going to make an NFL roster, just make an NFL roster. And so, that's where you realize the jump in the talent once you get to the NFL and what a big jump it is.
I always wondered if when you finished playing, I imagine they came after you hard. Did you ever consider going into a booth or into a studio and taking one of those jobs? Because it seems like so many guys flow to that now, and it's much easier than coaching. You said you didn't want to devote that time. I imagine TV came after you pretty hard.
Yeah, but it was like, Tom, I never... Because I didn't think that would be fulfilling. I wanted something that I was, to me, to go out and evaluate. When you're the guy and you're getting evaluated all the time, I kind of, it's great emotional, right? Because it's good and it's bad.
Yeah.
Right? It's good and it's bad. And so I think that I didn't ever think that I wanted to be that guy, right?
To criticize.
I didn't want to criticize, right? And so I didn't want to do that. And plus, I just think for me it wouldn't have been fulfilling. So that's why I was looking for something else. which was getting back in the Arena League to where I felt like I was learning something, right? In the booth, you're explaining what you know. Whereas with the arena football, I was looking forward to that because I was learning, and I like learning. I still like learning. And so that's why I never really, ever really got attracted to getting in the booth and explaining it. So,
But there was a time, though, that you wanted to get back into football, but not as a coach, but as an executive. And that situation when Josh McDaniels failed and you and Pat Bowlen got together and decided that that would work. Why did you come back into football at that level, since that was going to be probably more work than being a coach?
Yeah, but it was a big step too. I mean, it was like I didn't have any experience, especially in the NFL, and so I think that, I was fortunate to step in a good position. Brian Sanders was still there as the GM. Matt Russell was, I think he was I think he was the head of the college side at that point in time. And so really my first year now, as like I said, I learned a lot in the Arena Football League. Now, it's not the NFL, but you learn a lot about the business side and putting coaching staffs together and players together. And even though it was Arena, it wasn't that, but there was still experience doing that. And then, and I wasn't sure I was ever going to get a chance to come back to the Broncos. But then with everything that happened and I got the opportunity, I said, kind of putting my neck out there. But I figured that with the experience I had with the Arena League, what I knew about football, the people I'd been around in the game, that I felt like I could put a team together. I knew, because I'd been on losing Super Bowl teams and I'd been on winning Super Bowl teams, and I felt like I knew the difference between what those were, whether it be the coaching and players, obviously. And so I felt like I knew the difference. I'd been around football long enough that I could learn my way into being a GM. And so the first year, I just kind of really came in. Brian Sanders was still the GM, and so everything was kind of in place. So I didn't change a lot of things. I just kind of sat and listened and watched, and we hired John Fox that year. And then
Did to interrupt you, pardon me, but did you then do the same thing for John Lynch that they were doing for you? Because he's turned out to be an incredibly good.
Yeah, and I think
he spent time with you, allowing you to mentor him.
Yeah, but for him to give him the opportunity to see if come in and see how everything works, right? We think we know how as players, but we don't know really. We're not up there nearly as long as coaches and scouts and those type of things, so we don't know that. So I just said, hey, if you want the opportunity to come in, you can come in and see whatever you want, be here as long as you want, sit in draft meetings and to see if it's something that he really wanted to do. And Johnny's a very smart guy, as you know, and so he's done a heck of a job and figured out he wanted to get into it. It was funny. I had a long conversation with Tom Brady last year because obviously he's got, I think, 5 or 10% of the Raiders. And he called, and I talked to him for 2.5 hours talking about what the experience was like, and so I think that, he's got that for him, he's got the conflict with TV and, being a part of the Raiders, but, I think
tough time to own the Raiders.
You and I had a conversation about that, though, because at one point you were interested in a Los Angeles franchise that you might be a part of as ownership, and there's been so many rumors about you and Pat Bowlen, and that he offered you a percentage of ownership. But you told me later it wasn't quite where, the stories have been over the years. Oh, John lost millions and millions of dollars because he didn't do it. You explained to me
I had
what
an
the
option
truth.
to buy.
Yes.
My last contract had an option. So here's the story. Kislow gets it wrong every time. But I had an option with my last contract. In my last contract was an option to buy 10% of the team. Now, I had deferred a ton of money up to that point in time to where the math worked out that at a certain time, once I retired, that what they owed me would have gone to purchasing, right?
Right.
But it was so there was an option. And the one thing, we had no idea about it, but the one thing that happened is Edgar Kaiser still had a right of first refusal.
That's right.
He still had the right of first refusal. And I don't think, and if Edgar was doing better at the time, I don't know that he'd ever challenge us, but I don't know how well he was doing in his other business ventures and plus where the NFL
Poorly,
was going.
I can tell you, poorly.
But that was lurking. That was still out in there that might come to pass and be a legal problem. They later got that settled when they ultimately made this sale, right?
Yeah, and I didn't know that he had the ROFR. We didn't know that Edgar had the right of first refusal. So, and I think Pat and his team probably forgot about it too. And so then that's when they came to me. Somehow Edgar had heard about it. And
he sued the
So
Broncos.
then he came in and said, first of all, he said, I can't exercise the option, right? I can't exercise the option. So then and then they went to court and Edgar sues them and they actually lost. Edgar won the first suit.
Right.
And then it went to the Supreme Court, Colorado Supreme Court, and Pat ended up winning. But yeah.
You called me at one point and said, would you straighten this out, Kisler and other people? You said, it just sounded like, because people were saying,
It's like, can you
man,
believe
he would have
how Don Elway was? He walked away from
Hey, you know how those-
$400
you know how
million.
those
He would have
sports
made
writers
$400
are.
million. I'm like, yeah, that would have been nice.
You know
but-
sports writers. Hey, can I change the subject with you for 1 minute? We've all known you now for over 40 years. And I know from being around you a lot what a public figure you are, but I also think it's fair to say that you're a private guy. You keep a lot of things inside. What compelled you to do this Netflix documentary, which I've read great things about, and apparently from what I read, John, you've opened up about a lot of things in this documentary that you had never talked about publicly before.
Yeah, and I think that was. Yeah, I will tell you, Ron, the reason I did it from the first part is really kind of the legacy. Because there's a book and books and da-da-da-da-da. But I really did it for the grandkids and for them and
That
then
had not-
maybe my great grandkids, right? So they can get a feel for the personalities of people rather than through a book. The personalities, kind of what my story was, and as well as there's stuff with my twin sister in it and my dad and a bunch of stuff in there. So it was really fun going down memory lane and looking back at it. But it was also hard because there's a lot of pain there, losing Jana, losing my dad, and different things that went on. There were things, and I think I've always been kind of a private person.
Yeah.
So it was, I'll tell you when it felt really odd. I was going to that premiere, and you're going down there to watch a movie on yourself. I was not looking forward to that, but it ended up being okay.
Good.
Yeah.
So you're glad
ended up
you
being
did it.
fine,
You're glad you
I'm
did
really
it.
glad I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was cathartic for you in terms of that you got out a lot of information that maybe you had placed aside.
Yeah.
Because you said before we
And
went over
not only
here-
that, Wood, it was also kind of pushed down, right? Because it happened so long ago, right? So, when you go through pain like that, time is the one that heals it, but you kind of push it down because it's, and so to kind of bring it back and go through that again. And it was,
Somewhat therapeutic, even,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
some ways.
But
It
not only
felt
that,
good.
a lot of younger
Felt
people
good.
in Denver probably will never or don't realize how much struggles you had football-wise because of certain things that were out of your control early in your career.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no question. I think that, go through the draft and, bucking the NFL, the draft
Sure.
stuff and all that stuff and trying to get my point of view from what the real story is and what the options were and what I was going to do. And, it's still the same. I was going to play baseball for a year. Name goes back in the draft, and then we'll see what happens the following year. And then 2 weeks later, we got
and
drafted here.
there
so
was a situation
traded here.
you both were. We were talking about it earlier before you got here that your coach Dan Reeves had been a player, tough player, competitive person. You're a competitive person, and it was almost like heads beating against each other of two strong, competitive men. Did you, in looking back on that, feel that that was the case, that he wanted to prove that he could make you, in his form, become what he wanted you to be, while you had a strong feeling about what you should be as a quarterback?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all strong. We're all strong-minded coming out of college, and right? We're all strong-minded because if you think about it, and I think this is one of the key things why young quarterbacks have a tough time making it in the NFL, especially those first rounders when it's maybe 50-50 or even less of the guys that make it, that you're used to hear high school, you heard about how great you are, you're great in high school, then you go to college and you're great in college and da-da-da. So you've really never taken a lot of negative criticism before you get out of college. And so coming out of college, you got a pretty good view of yourself.
And then you run into guys like us.
Well, yeah. But then you run into tough times. You're going to run into tough times as, learning in this league as a rookie and building it up and, getting used to what you're doing. And plus taking the negativity. And the negativity started on me before I even played because of the fact that people didn't like the fact that they thought I was bucking the NFL draft. And so I think all those things added to, for me, because I wanted to fight those negatives. I wanted to prove everybody wrong. Sure. I didn't take them personally. It added more incentive for me, right? Sure. So it probably even made me more hard-headed in the fact of, taking the criticism and not playing real well my rookie year and those type things. And, so I got into the negative publicity quick.
Did you have any envy? Because the other guys, Marino gets with Shula, and he gets to throw for thousands of yards and wing it all over the place and go to a Super Bowl, in his second year and all that. Was that something where you looked and said, I want that?
Yeah.
I want what he's got, that freedom to throw the football.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, Danny threw for 5,000 yards his second year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was just unbelievable. And so, there was definitely, especially with the guys that came out in the 83 draft, right? So there was a competition there no matter what. But, with Danny, coming out and doing that in the second year, there's no question, there was like, well, we're the same age. I want to do that too, right? Or I think I can do that. I'm just not allowed.
I should be doing that.
I'd like to have a chance to do that.
But
right?
it was almost worse for you because you came to a market where beyond football, they're writing about what you're giving out, Halloween candy. They want to know where you got a haircut. They want to know where you got a beer. I mean, it was suffocating for you.
The world got small fast, that's for sure. And that was, it was a big step. And so, those things that I learned that first year, and like I said, the criticism added fuel to my fire. So that's why I was like, all right. That kept me going, and that's what I am gonna prove everybody wrong in this deal, and eventually, especially at the Super Bowls.
Yeah.
We talk about coach-quarterback relationships, and it came up. A lot of people are still buzzing about Belichick Brady. Who was the guy? Who was the, Chuck Nolan, Terry Bradshaw never got along, and if you were governing,
well, I don't blame Chuck Nolan for not getting along with Terry Bradshaw.
I know.
Revenge.
I'm siding with Chuck there.
But even as the game was then, or as the game is now, if you had a choice of getting the best coach in the game or the best quarterback in the game, and you could pick one or the other, was there one you'd choose?
I think you got to have both.
Yeah.
I really think you do, and I think that's. I mean, a good offensive-minded coordinator or head coach is the best thing for a young quarterback. And, I think we're seeing it with Sean and Bo. I mean, that's a good fit. And so I as a GM, what I learned is that you got to have both those guys. You got that head guy he's got to be strong. He's got to know what he's doing. He's got to be a psychologist. And, and Sean's a great psychologist. Mike was a psychologist. And so they're coaches and psychologists to get them how they set the standards. And so,
but you still need a quarterback.
You still need them both. You can win without a quarterback. You can't win a championship without one.
Right.
How about your relationship? Speaking of that, your relationship with Tim Tebow in a short period of time. How do you look back on that? Fondly, or boy, that was the hardest period of my life, or whatever?
Tim was a great kid. I mean, it was like he played his tail off and competed, and he was a great kid. It was just a matter of.
You couldn't play?
Well, and the thing is, it was like, because I'll never remember, I think it was the first year that I was here, we were in Green Bay, and we hadn't played well the first two games. And Tebow had been drafted the year, what did he get drafted, 2009?
Yeah.
The year before I got here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I mean, Kyle Orton was starting. And then I went to John. I said, John, at some point in time, I just want you to put this in the back of your mind. At some point in time, if things aren't going well, we got to find out what we have with Tebow, right? So he goes, okay, and I was like, and this is probably the second or third week. Well, the fourth week we go to Green Bay, and Kyle's in there, and Timmy's third, and Brady Quinn was the backup. So we're in Green Bay. First half goes bad. There goes Timmy. Fox put him in the second half of right past Quinn and put Tim in. But then again, then you go through that whole year, and it was absolute crazy.
Yes.
Right? And the wins we had, it
3
was
for
just
7
like,
for 20 yards. And,
yeah. We go to Miami. We're down 14-0 with 3 minutes to go. We got 1 first down. We went 15-14. We went in overtime, right? So it's just like, and so after that year, it was like, oh boy, and Timo Mania was going crazy, and he was a great kid and everything, but.
And he threw that ball against Pittsburgh, and everyone clings to that.
Before,
that was the best throw he ever made.
Exactly.
And that week, because he had, in Kansas City, completed 2 out of 8 passes.
Yeah.
Then you lose at home to Kansas City, go into the game, and I called John and I
Kansas
said,
City?
yeah,
Kyle Orton coming in here.
And I called you and I said, if you were speaking to Tim Tebow this week, what would you tell him? And you said, pull the trigger. There was one other word in there.
Yeah.
But I changed the quote for you.
Oh.
And so the next day, everybody's asking Tebow. John Elway says, pull the trigger. He said, well, that's what I should do then. Well, guess what happened? He pulled the trigger on the first play in overtime, and you win the game. But he didn't seem like a long-term solution to you.
No.
After that.
No.
And Peyton Manning comes.
He was the savior. I knew, and I'm just telling you, I knew the only out from Tim Tebow. Peyton was the only out.
The perfect out,
yes,
too.
he was.
Yeah, exactly. But if you think about it, they might have blown up Mile High or blown up my house, or because we had to have an option. You can't win a first round of the playoffs.
This might be awkward for you to answer, but I always got the feeling that the reason the Broncos were able to get Peyton Manning is because a guy named John Elway was there, and that meant a lot to Peyton Manning. There was money, there was opportunity here, there, and other places, but I get the feeling you were the difference in getting him to commit to come here.
And we never really talked. He never came to me to tell me exactly why he came here, other than he thought it was best fit for him. And the thing is, and Peyton was, you guys know Peyton, and he's very thorough in anything he does. I think he went to Arizona, he went to Tennessee. The only team I was really worried about was Tennessee.
Yeah.
Miami.
Yeah.
He took a trip
In Miami, but the only one I was really worried about was Tennessee, because obviously he played college football
Hometown.
there and whatnot. But, Peyton came in, and he was here for a couple of days, and, obviously hit it off with John Fox, who was easy to hit it off with because he's a real good guy, and then Mike McCoy. And I think Peyton knew coming in, talking to McCoy and what we're going to do offensively, that Peyton knew here we were going to do everything he wanted to do. And what he was used to doing.
Talking to eye to you about being a Bronco and all that,
Yeah,
I can imagine you could have sold it,
Yeah, I mean,
very
we went
well.
to he came
Yeah,
in, went to
because
Cherry Hills, and
Cherry
sat up
Hills,
there and talked
he hadn't
about
been
it
to
and all the
Cherry
different
Hills,
things and
yeah.
where I was and what our goals were, and it's trying to win championships.
Worked out pretty good.
Yeah. And so
That and a lot of other good moves you made too that people forget. Drafting Von Miller, bringing in Emmanuel Sanders, go getting T.J. Ward. You did a lot of things,
DeMarcus
even
Ware.
on the DeMarcus Ware on the defensive side of the ball.
That defense was
Talib.
as good as there was in 80.
You think that? How would you
2015?
compare that defense and this defense?
Well, I think experience-wise, we were better then. I think they do more now than we did back in 2015. With Wade being Wade was
Wade was
you're going to man it up and and play, and we could do
and that
that.
secondary was incredible.
Chris Harris,
Yeah.
Talib.
so. But yeah, it's a different style of defense because this one's a lot more aggressive. We could pressure with 4 in 2015. We pressured with 4. That's why we won the Super Bowl, because we could pressure with 4.
Yeah.
And so.
This one might be better in the middle of that defensive line, though. I mean, Zach Allen and Roach and DJ, they seem like
they're all really good.
They run it in the middle.
You said to me when you took over that here was a guy who's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You loved offenses when the 97 and 98 teams, great offenses. And you said, I want to develop defense. And I always remember that quote. You may not remember. You said, defense is what gets a crowd up. He said, the interception, the fumble recovery.
Sack.
And I found that so funny after you had spent an entire career, your entire
Well,
life.
if you
being
think
an
about it,
offensive
my
guy.
first 10 years, that's what kept us in every game was the defense, right? I mean, we were so good. We were good on defense.
So you
That's
did
why-
develop that defense
Yeah.
that was
Well,
sensational.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what happened there too, right? Because in 2013, Peyton broke all the records and all the TD passes, and went through the roof offensively, statistically, and then we went and got beat by the Seahawks in New York in Super Bowl 48, 48-6 or whatever it was, and so. I remember after that game, I'm like, all right, we're going back to the defensive side. Peyton was starting to slide a little bit too. And then it worked out. And the good thing, I will tell you, the easiest thing in the world is recruit to Peyton Manning. That's what you don't realize is when you have a guy like that, guys will
Come play.
They'll come play here.
Don't you also think that your coach, Gary Kubiak, did a remarkable job that year with Peyton, a guy his skills were descending,
His
and
body.
Gary managed it so well.
And Gary was so good at that. That's how Gary really managed the team well. He's he's as reserved and quiet as he is, he's that good up in front of a team and really did a heck of a job. I mean, it was because John ended up going. We split ways with John Fox, and he went to Chicago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And and then Gary came in and won it that first year, and so.
Yeah,
Do you
he's great.
think two moments, and I wrote down this morning 7 moments in my career of watching you that, for me, I think my moment in my sports writing career is when I got up at the Pro Football Hall of Fame and I'm supposed to give this speech, and I had spent days writing pages and pages and pages about you, and I tossed it on the floor and I said, "Gentlemen, John Elway," and I sat back down and there was a standing ovation, and I thought, "Oh, boy, that's something." They were applauding you, but they were applauding that I took 10 seconds.
Well, brevity is, you're known for brevity.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it's still the shortest speech in the history of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But for you, all I could write down this morning, and it's on a piece of paper here, is 2 moments in your career. When you heard, this one's for John, and you were able to come back years later and say, this one's for Pat. I would think that a lot of the other memories may fade. You've been brought back in your Netflix documentary, but those 2 have to stand in the front of your mind in your life and in your career.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, it solidified me as a quarterback and as a GM, if you think about it, right? That I was able to put be on the winning team and help put a Super Bowl team together. And so, those 2. And plus the relationship I had with Pat and to be able to do that was special. So, I mean, I still, when Mobley knocked that pass down in Super Bowl 32, that was like the happiest I'd ever been in my life. When I saw that hit the ground, I was like, I ran out to Tommy Neal and I said, Tommy, I've taken 2 million snaps in my life. I said, Tommy, make sure I get this football.
You guys were great in that game. You went in as heavy underdogs, and then next year you go back against Dan as heavy favorites. I imagine doing what you did as a heavy underdog was helpful in going in as a heavy favorite and understanding, it doesn't mean anything when we line it up.
Right. And the other thing, the 98 team, we were so good, right? We had most everybody back, and other than Zim, which Dan sent, or Mike sent me to Sturgis to try to get Zim to come back.
Tough trip.
Yeah. You want me to do what? Okay.
I'm in.
Right.
Oh,
But we were so good that year, and so really, and that confidence after winning the Super Bowl, then the confidence, we knew coming back we were that good. And so the greatest thing about that year is when we practiced, it was all about if we play like we didn't even worry about who we're playing yet. We understood their defense and da-da-da-da. But we knew we were better than everybody. And we'd practice like it's up to us. If we play well, no one can beat us. If we play the way we're capable of playing, nobody can beat us. And
You were surrounded by guys who got to the Ring of Fame, could be in the Hall of Fame, but it was funny because you think of Mike Shanahan either as a talent evaluator or as a coach who got something out of behind you is a 6th-round draft pick, Terrell Davis. Your tight end's a 7th-round pick. Nobody drafted Rod Smith. Ed McCaffrey you picked up. He was just laying there.
Right.
And they all turned into these,
Yeah.
that says a lot about Mike, I guess.
It does.
And those guys.
And that and the system, right?
Yeah.
The system is that good. Mike's system's that good. We're still seeing it. We're still seeing it in Kyle and San Francisco, what they're doing there. But the system was that good. And I think, that's what Mike did. Holmgren was great. All those West Coast, Walsh, all those guys that was under count of Walsh's tree, Holmgren, they were all great. But nobody, first of all, took it to the next level like Mike did with formations and different things, what we do, and outnumbering people and those type of things in the secondary. So Mike kind of started that with Gary. And then, Kyle's now taking it to a different level because it's a different game and there's so much more to it. But, Mike, that's where Mike was so good. And the thing is, when I say a psychologist as a head coach, Mike was good at that. He could push buttons really well.
Yeah.
You think Mike could come back and coach right now?
Well,
If
you
he
tried.
wanted to.
I
You
tried. I tried.
I know.
But I think he's probably, past that.
He's
Even though I still think he really is heavily involved with Kyle and helping Kyle, especially offensively, and that's what keeps Mike going because he's still good at it. So I still think he's heavily involved. But Mike was, the one interesting thing about Mike was when we won, the thumb went, usually throughout life, you win a football game with the coaching staff. Everybody's happy. Foot comes off the accelerator. Everybody's happy. And then you play somebody the next week, and they're not as good, and you lose that because you're happy about having a big win.
Yeah.
But Mike was the exact opposite in the fact that if we won, the pedal went down.
Yep, he was harder.
Right?
Yeah.
He was tough. And then if we lost a game, the pedal came up,
Yeah.
right? Which is the exact opposite of anything we've ever learned as athletes when we were younger. That, and I always thought that was one unique style of Mike's. And
Do you feel somewhat fulfilled about what Vance Joseph, he was your chosen coach, has accomplished now with defense, and he's on the verge of getting another head coaching job? That makes you personally feel better about the situation that you chose him and it just didn't work out. And secondly, B is, what do you think of this team and what it's doing offensively and defensively?
Well, first of all, I'm excited for Vance and what he's done. He's very bright in what he does defensively. They're talented over there, but they also mix things up and do great things scheme-wise. And so he's a lot more sound now than he used to be, right? He used to be not as sound as he is, but now he's got blitzes coming from all different directions, but he's sound in doing that. So very bright. And so I hope he gets another opportunity because I don't, looking back at it, I thought he was ready, and he probably didn't turn out that he was ready. And so, but it's nice for him. I'm glad he's having the success he has, and hopefully that he gets that second chance as a head coach. And then your second question is about the team now.
Yeah.
I think it's funny to listen. They're 9-2, and everyone's talking about, well, they're not playing that good, or they're this or that. Da, 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 da. And I said, Bo, turn it down. Don't listen to it. You keep winning games, everything else goes away. That's the
When you
thing.
talk to Bo, does he ever ask you for advice from an old running quarterback?
You know what? I've not had enough time to spend. I haven't spent much time around him, so I have not had a chance to really sit down and chat
Evaluate
with
him
and whatnot.
then. Since
You like him?
I do like him.
Yeah.
I think he was much better. Even though I was playing in a tournament on Sunday, so I was watching the game on my phone, so I couldn't.
You got your
I
priorities
had to go
straight,
punt.
right?
I couldn't take my phone because it was connected to my speaker, and so I missed a lot of it.
He
but
played
I
well,
had it
yeah.
on. But I think he's settling down a little bit. To me, it looks like, for the first part, it looked like he was just moving too quick. Things were moving really, really fast for him. And so I think once he slows that down, and I think
That's hard to do, isn't it?
It is. Age
Yeah.
and experience will
People
help
tell you
him
to
with
slow
that.
down. That should do it.
Yeah.
But do you
Because
relax?
he's got all the tools, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But did you know, like in your first year, your rookie year was a struggle for the team, for you. Everything seemed to be hard. In your second year, you guys won 10 in a row. And Bo's now on an 8-game winning streak in that second year. I mean, I think people always want to draw some parallels or contrast between you and Bo, and sometimes, they'll throw in Tebow if the offense is struggling.
There's three different guys right there.
But do you, I mean, can you relate to that? You're 24 years old in your second year, you win 10 in a row, and you're on your way to winning the AFC West.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And that's where I think Sean Payton's done such a great job too, especially when you talk about him what they did last year and the year they had last year, and you could see that offense progress over time and giving him a little more bites, all the time. And so, and then coming into this year, and the good thing about Bo, he plays 62 college football games. That is huge, right? Most guys 24 maybe, especially in today's world, because if they've started 24 games in college, they're coming out
right
as a junior, chances are. So that experience helped him a ton. But I just think those two together with Sean and his philosophy, and Sean, he knows how to win football games. It's proven this year that they're making the plays when they have to make it, and they're winning the fourth quarter. Whereas the previous 5 or 6 years, we hadn't won the fourth quarter ever, and everybody was sitting waiting for the bad play to happen.
Right.
Yeah. The Broncos, and their mentality is, we're going to make a play to win a football game. And so I think, and they've got that, and they've done it enough. And when you get that confidence like that, you're never out of a game.
Yeah.
And
Shanahan
Bo's
used to always
active
say
enough.
the difference between all these teams is so slight. It's the teams that are coached up and believe they're going to win and have a culture. That's the difference.
There is a ton to that nobody sees or understands because they're not around it. You guys are a little bit on the outside as the media and stuff, but fans and everybody are not under, what goes on in those meeting rooms and what goes on the practice field. And so, but they've got that mentality. And because it's so hard when you don't have it, is breaking the cycle, which is very difficult.
Yeah.
And now they've got that, and they've broken it, and now they're, they get in the fourth quarter, they believe they can beat anybody, which is.
Well, there's nobody in the AFC that they're going to run into anymore that they're going to say, wow, we're
overmatched.
Right? I mean, they're going to have confidence against anybody they play.
Right. So it's.
You mentioned that Nix played 62, 64 games, more than anybody. You would have played one more game. Does that still bother you?
The band.
I didn't say that. I
said, it's nice you bring that up because this is Thanksgiving every year they bring it up to play. So
it'll never.
What is it now? 43 years ago.
I thought it could make you laugh.
It'll never go away.
No, it won't. So now I can laugh at it.
I have a random old timer for you. I never knew this until this year, and everything in the world finds you on social media at some point. You pitched to Darryl Strawberry in high school?
Yeah. Well, my senior year, we won the city title in baseball my junior year. We had like 7 guys that were seniors, so we graduated all, and then we end up get back in the city title game. And the funny thing is, we played at Dodger Stadium, right? So it's play at Dodger Stadium, and we're playing Crenshaw, who they wrote a book. There's a book about that high school team that Crenshaw was on. I think Eric Davis, Chris Brown. And so they had 7 or 8 guys drafted off that team. But, we played them.
You got brought in specifically to face him, right?
I was like, the starter was going. I hadn't been on a mound in a month because the previous time I'd been on the mound, I hit like 3 guys, walked 4, right?
The Rockies, they're looking for you.
I know, exactly. And so our head coach was a hard ass in baseball, and he comes out and he just points third base. And I didn't get on a mound again. And we're at Dodger Stadium. We're down 4-1. There's a guy on first base. It's like the 3rd inning. And I'm playing third base, and I see him come out of the dugout. And I swear to God, I've not been on a mound in a month. And I'm going, I got a bad feeling. I just started looking around and looking the stands. I didn't want to go to the mound. So I went to the mound, and he just grabs, and he didn't like our starting pitcher anyway. And he throws the ball at me. And so I shut him out from there, and we end up winning the game 10-4. And all I got was a fastball.
Right.
And all they hit.
Probably a live one.
A live one. They didn't know where it was going. So they kept them on their toes. But, so we end up – and Darryl was the starting pitcher against us.
I got to ask you one story about your dad that I never asked you directly in all these years. You said that you wanted to play for your dad in college, and your dad – who I loved. He sat behind me all the time in the press box. So many good conversations. and he told you no, did you ever think about how life would have been different if you had played for him in college?
You know, I would have played for him if he was in the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 at the time. I would have, I would have played with him. But obviously, the opportunity to go to Stanford and ultimately it was my mom that said, "You know where you're going, don't you?" I said, "Well, not really." She goes, "No, you're going to Stanford." I said, because I didn't have any idea the magnitude of the education at that time. I was looking forward to playing football, and it would have been great to play for my dad, but I think Stanford was the right place, and I did get to play for him in the East-West Shrine game. That's the only time I ever got to play with the All-Star game after my senior year in college. So.
Oh, wait, so you did play one more game. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
So
Yeah.
The today's game is interesting because obviously the offenses continue to get rules bent in their favor. I mean, you can see receivers running free as much as they can, and the quarterbacks now are not to be touched. Would that have helped you when you think of all the hits that you took that are probably now flags? Because whenever I see Atwater or Dennis Smith around, I think every tackle you guys made was probably a personal foul now. But the same with all those hits on the quarterback that you had to take. I mean, that took a toll?
It did. I mean, I'm actually still doing okay, so it's hard to, but yeah, I mean, it's where they get hit now. And I mean, it still blows my mind if a guy goes to block a pass, and hits the guy in the helmet. How can that possibly be a flag? Why are you wearing your helmet? In case someone hits you in the head with a hand or something, right?
Game's changed.
But it's changed a lot, and I think I think for the better too. They're taking the big hits out, the unsafe hits, which is good, but also the mentality's changed. It still hasn't changed in that front seven. Those guys are still grinding it out. O-line, D-line, backers. They're still grinding it out, but. No one's afraid to go across the middle anymore. I used to feel bad if I let anybody into trouble, and so it was that was all part of the mindset. And I also knew that they were trying to get me out of the game. So it was like I never wanted to know they hurt me.
So
but
why the helicopter is all you have to say in this town?
Yeah.
You say the drive and the helicopter, right? That's everybody, even 8-year-olds know this. Why did you do that?
The helicopter?
Yeah, I mean, you talking about being in harm's way, taking as many sacks as you had to do. You didn't do it on purpose, but that play.
Yeah, I'm just glad they thought I was going down, so I could put the old 6-inch vertical jump going over the top. But it was like, I mean, that's how much that game meant too, right? So it was like. And that play is, Mike and I had talked about and argued about the play that came in the whole week. I said, I don't like that play. He goes, well,
you don't.
I do.
You don't like it, or
Mike said, I didn't like it.
He didn't like it.
Right? I kept telling Gary, I said, Mike, could I tell Mike? And then Mike didn't listen, so I told Gary. I said, Gary, will you tell Mike that I don't like that play? So anyway, by the end of the week.
You saw that end? You saw how that play was going to end?
Yeah.
Well, no.
In the week?
So the funny thing is, I said, Mike, what if we don't get this coverage? He goes, John. 100% of the time, we're going to get this covered. Well, sure enough, walk out. They're not in that coverage, right? So it's kind of funny, though, when you look at fate and how things set up, and then ends up a play that I didn't like ends up being a big play that a lot of people remember for a long, long time. So
sure. I mean,
but you had so many plays. I can think of 30 different individual plays, having seen all your games in person. I remember a play in Seattle I'll never forget, where they blitzed you and a guy came in and he went over your shoulder. You kind of
ducked underneath him.
You ducked underneath him and hit Shannon on a post.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that play.
Yeah. That's in my top. Might be my top play. Yeah.
You know what? I'll never forget that play.
Did you ever see anybody throw a football better than you?
The only guy that I thought was close was Brett Favre. We'd go to those quarterback challenges and do that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Did your arm get you in trouble at times?
Yeah.
Like you had a little bit of arm ego?
And this. Yeah. Both of them got
I can stick it in there.
It got me in trouble like 200 sometimes, right?
But I came back from seeing you play Washington. That's the first time I met you after the game. I loved Stanford taking that walk down the street to the stadium.
Yeah.
Through the fans. And I
It was great walking down. It was great walking back when you won.
Yeah.
It was a long walk when you.
And I come back.
Yeah.
That's the strike year in the NFL, and so I'm going and watching college football players, and I went to see you. And Washington had a running back from Denver, played in the National Football League. That's what I remember. That was he was their star.
I think Scott Plewert was the quarterback. I think.
Very good.
But I come back and I go into Dan Reeves' office when you could just walk through the offices, and he was having a Subway sandwich. And I said, I've seen the future of the NFL, Dan. And he said, what is that? I said, John Elway. And he said, well, we can't get him because we have the 4th pick. And he said, what made you so shocked by him? And I said, he throws a ball, and the defensive back is between him and the receiver, and it's like when you drop a dollar bill, can't do this. I said, he throws it right through the hands of the defensive back because he knows it's so strong and it's going to beat him. And he said, I've never seen anybody like that. He said, I'd like to get him, but we can't get him.
Yeah.
So I remember when the trade happened, I went and he said, you were right. He is the future of the NFL. And we did get him. But
I was thinking of that
I
ball
want to make
whistling
a
over
comparison.
Carl Hairston's head
Yes.
on the throw
Like
to Mark
that
Jackson.
fingertip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just missed his. Yeah.
Yeah, he sent it right over his hat.
But
Good thing
I
Mark
felt
caught
like
that. Yeah.
there's a comparison being made. We're not the only ones to talk about this, that it's almost that Peyton is doing what Reeves did to you, where he on the fourth quarter, when fourth quarter starts, he goes, okay, I'm turning you loose now. Did you feel like that's what your career was about, that Reeves, when you were with Reeves, that he'd say, I'm going to just keep it close?
I do now. I mean, it's like, at the time I didn't realize it, but I think that was the style of play. That's what Dan, and that's if you think about what he learned in Dallas. Did Dallas ever blow anybody up? I think that was kind of the style, was to play good defense, don't make mistakes, keep it close. And
Do you think
I
that's
think
kind of
that
what
was-
they're doing this year, though? I mean, the same thing that Peyton's doing that with Nix?
Well, I do think Sean knows how good he is on defense, right? So therefore, try to prevent the turnovers. It's funny, and I heard this, and I wasn't sure if it's true, but all the screens they were throwing against the Giants, and everybody was going nuts and da-da-da-da. Well, they were really good in the front seven, right?
Yeah.
That defensive, the front four is really, really good. And I'd heard from a real good source that Sean was trying to tire those guys out, right? So he gets them running sideways, and they got to cover and da-da-da-da, that he wanted to wear them out. And then it looks pretty good when they score 33 points in the fourth quarter.
If you have a good
That's not
defense,
bad.
Right?
You have a
Yeah,
good defense, a
pretty
punch
good.
is a
So
good
those
play.
type things that we don't know on the outside.
Sure.
There's a method. There's definitely a method to
That got the
Sean.
coach fired too. It did do really.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I saw something Sunday that reminded me of you, because I always told my boys what a great player you were, and they said, "Oh, he's a great quarterback." I said, "No, he's a great football player." And they would say, "What do you mean?" And I'd said, "Every interception I ever saw John throw, he'd go down and knock that living hell out of the guy that intercepted it." And I saw it with Mahomes this Sunday, where he tried to make a tackle, he got by him, and then he still kept running and tried to recover the fumble. Does Mahomes sometimes remind you of yourself?
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of different arm angles that I didn't have. I didn't throw any no-look passes either.
But
That
you-
was not
but
necessarily
you
like-
made-
it wasn't the in thing back
It wouldn't have
then.
been
you
so
made-
popular on the bench.
You did what he did, though.
Yeah.
You made plays out of
And that,
nothing.
and I've been around him, played golf with him a little bit. He's really a good kid, and he's got that young spirit, and I think he's that good too. I think
And they're
that
on
he's
him
as
now
good as
after that loss this week. And you felt
Yeah.
that too. You have great,
that-
and people get on you after you win 9, 10 in a row and you lose one, and people are like, well,
exactly.
I
I mean,
don't know.
I saw this deal on ESPN today. Like, this may be the first time. If he loses this week, it's the first time he's lost 3 games in a row in his 9-year career, right? So
I
it's
mean,
like,
come on.
But you
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
ability, and I think Ron's right, you had the ability to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken
Exactly.
salad. And that actually, I think, elongated your career because you were
Well,
able
if
to
I-
avoid trouble, even though you got
if I
hurt.
didn't avoid it, I probably played 7 years.
when you say elongated your career, though, that's I think what the documentary shows is you also weren't going to go until you'd been to the top. It
Right.
seems like that's a big piece of the story that people will see on Netflix.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah,
But, I mean,
19
I was chasing that championship. I was going to go until
Yeah.
I was, and yeah.
I've told the story,
so-
and you won't remember this. They opened Coors Field, and you have a suite there, and somehow we end up in the same suite, and you say, "Am I going to make the Hall of Fame?" Because I was on the Hall of Fame committee, and I said, "Johnny, you'll make it, but until you win one, you won't be first round." Because I'd seen going through 15 years of that, and you said, "So if I win a Super Bowl," I said, "If you can get to that, win that Super," and I wasn't the impetus for him doing it, but I remember saying that, and when you got to 2, that's why, going back to what we talked about earlier, about I could get up in front of 48 people and say, John Elway. That's all it took. I think that somebody's going to come along in the next 3 years and say, gentlemen and ladies, Tom Brady.
Yeah,
But they can't, there were no ladies in
Yeah.
the room at the time.
Yeah.
But do you think that having a golf career, which you've had, kind of, using that word again, elongated your competitive juices because you played so much golf professionally in the tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really much of a golf career. I enjoy playing golf, and
Well,
I
you
have
played in the
I have played
Colorado
in
Open
tournaments.
and
I've played,
everything.
I've tried to make the cut there. So it's like when I go and it's a challenge. I played in Tahoe. And
I
that
was
type
there
thing,
when you
but-
were maybe 2 or 3 points out of the lead on the last day.
Yeah.
Had a chance to win. So,
Yeah.
but
You mentioned
played.
the Hall of Fame. It's funny to me because I think everybody here thinks Mike Shanahan belongs in. I don't think there's a question, but the path to the Hall of Fame for coaches, because they now get down to 9 and 6 or 7 of them all belong in the Hall of Fame, and it's just a matter of how they're going to put one a year.
And the oddity is that 2 of your coaches are competing
Yeah,
against
Dan
each
and
other
I
this
thought
year.
Mike should have gone in last year over Holmgren. Personally, I mean,
Yep.
and that's not taking anything away from any of those guys,
Right.
But I think without a doubt he should have got in last year. With you put him against Holmgren and their records against him, Mike's superior.
One coach not in the Hall of Fame is Frank Kush. But there's this great theory, and it seems to really hold water, that if Frank Kush wasn't there, if they'd had a coach that you and your father were comfortable with, you would have gone to Baltimore. Baltimore would have never moved. Cleveland would have never moved. The Broncos might have
Wow.
had to move.
Wow.
Indy
7
would have never. No,
degrees
really.
of,
No, you think about it. I mean, if you go play and you're a Colt and you're the next John Unitas and they go on and have 15 years of Baltimore isn't going anywhere. So Cleveland
Glad it
doesn't move
didn't
to
work that way.
Baltimore. There's no Indy.
So
There's no.
you ruined the NFL?
You changed everything.
Sure.
You saw it all.
But I will say, and I will say this, Tom, about Baltimore, and yeah, obviously, because I wouldn't take when I came out of high school, I didn't take a trip to Arizona State because of Kush, right? 'Cause
Right.
I'd heard, his reputation.
Well, wasn't your father in an all-star game or something, or clinic with him, and
It could have
he
been,
didn't
yeah.
like it? Yeah.
It could have been. It didn't like him, but ultimately, the ownership group with Robert Irsay and what he was doing, and I mean, it really came down to the organization. Not Kush actually added to it, but.
It wasn't just him.
No, it wasn't just him. It was more the organization and what they were doing, and the instability of Irsay, and so that's really what ultimately it
What
was.
kind of baseball player would you have been?
I had a good year in minor league baseball between my junior and senior year. I got off to a real slow start because I hadn't played in 9 months. Because after I got done playing football, I had to wait 6 months to go play. I've had 2 guys that I roomed with at Stanford, Steve Buechele and Mike Aldretti. Both of them were
Good major
They both
leaguers.
had 10 to 12, 13-year careers. And so I think compared to them, if they could have done it, I think I could have done it. Now, how good I could have been, I don't know. I spent a lot more time on football than I did baseball. So
Did you play with anybody in Oneonta who made it?
Jim DeShays, remember
Oh,
the
sure.
pitcher, left-hander?
Yeah.
He does the
Left-handed,
Cubs games
yeah.
on TV
yeah,
all the time.
yeah. So he was the one that made it there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Obviously we could do another
keep 'em all
5
day.
hours of this, but I know you got to get to the golf course. It's really nice of you to share your story, both on Netflix and here with us. I mean, we've all known you for a long time from the day you arrived and beyond, but it's it's special to get some long time to chat and to make a chat that we can share with our viewers and listeners. So it's really
Yeah.
cool of you to make the trip.
Well, I will say this. The reason I came down here because of you old fogies, too, and the fact that we fit all in together. So it's like, obviously get a lot of chance to do this.
I said this to you.
It was a love-hate with you guys. You know that.
It was.
Now it's just love. So that's why I'm
Isn't that
here.
great? Isn't that
Now
great,
I'm
though?
just-
that
I
now
think it
it's-
was more love with you guys and more hate.
We're going to rename the show "We're Still
Yeah,
Here."
you were down low on the list a couple times.
You earned your spot.
But there was a moment when I was living in a famous house in Denver where we could watch fights, and you'd come over and bring some of the offensive linemen. You probably not Bill Daniels' house.
Oh yeah,
We'd come over and we'd watch on a 200-foot screen.
Yeah.
But a final question, because you have just seen your documentary. Did you learn something about yourself watching yourself that you had never really recognized, that you suddenly go, oh man, that's a point I'd never thought about?
I wouldn't say that. I would say the one thing that it really helped me, because I know losing Dad and then losing Jana, in a year and a half, I think how I handled that is I kind of ran away from it, right? Because there was so much pain there losing they were my two best friends. My dad was my best friend, and my Jana and I as twins she was, the best of my best friends. So losing those two people in a short period of time, how I coped with that, I kind of realized going back, talking about it, looking back on it, I really kind of shoved it down. And, it's amazing. And the reason I feel that is because when I watch the tape, I get emotional every time I watch it, right?
Yeah.
And so that to me tells me, all right, and it's a good thing to get emotional about it, but it's also kind of tells me maybe it's something that you stashed away for a long, long time. And to be able to kind of bring it back to life has made me kind of appreciate that a little bit more and feel like, because, when you're battling, and you're getting beat on all the time, sometimes you wonder if you can be, because you're fighting the criticism, you wonder sometimes if you become such a cold person that, you
put up walls.
You put walls. And then you kind of deaden your emotional center because you don't want to handle it and da-da-da-da. And so I think doing this Netflix deal has really kind of helped me go back and visit that. And there's so many great times and so many great memories. And so it was fun going through that process. But also, and I've talked to I've talked to my friends, and all my friends are going, I didn't know that much about you, right?
Yeah.
So it'll
It
be.
means you
it'll
really
be
opened
fun.
up.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah.
shared. So it'll
It'll
be
be good.
Yeah.
22nd?
22nd of December, it's coming out. So.
And so do you have a plan with your grandchildren that you're going to sit down and talk about this other than the documentary?
I haven't really thought about that yet, so we'll see. Maybe we're together and we watch it with them. I don't know. So I haven't really.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for
Yeah.
coming, John.
My
Really
pleasure.
appreciate
I
it.
mean this. I'm glad you asked me when you sent it down there, but I'm glad you asked me because it's good talking to you guys and seeing you guys and getting caught up a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're thinking
And
about.
good luck with your podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
We're
Well,
thinking
this
about,
helps. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but we're also thinking about Tom's not really holding up his end. if we put it around your schedule of golf and when you're in town and out of town, maybe we could do it out of Idaho.
Yeah, you bet. You guys that like that, we'll go do it on the boat.
Yeah, it'd be great. Thanks again.
Great
my
to see you,
pleasure.
John.
Enjoy
Thanks.
it.
It's great seeing you guys.